Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. Today we have Maili Costa on the podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Maili.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's thank you for so much for taking the time to be here as well. So tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? Like, what's your passions and what do you do for a living?
Sure. I am a health coach. I work primarily with low carb nutrition, and then I also get into circadian health with my clients. I have been a long distance runner for years and years and pulling myself away from that. But I did coach for many, many years. I coached long distance runners and also primarily women, getting them out onto the trails in the mountains where I used to live. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit about me and what I do.
Amazing. That sounds great. And so you mentioned a little bit about the keto carnivore space. Like, what got you into that initially? Because we don't just all of a sudden decide one day, I'm gonna try this diet. Typically, like myself and many others, many of my clients, we got into this space because we encountered personal health struggles. So did you have something similar that got you into that?
Yes, actually, I did. I have struggled with gut health issues for my entire life. I remember being a very little kid and having horrible, horrible stomach pains. Um, but what really got me into, I guess it was, I hear this a lot from people, more paleo and then low carb and then keto and then carnivore. But what led me down that path was my gut health issues, but then also actually my running. I had been hearing about, certain endurance athletes utilizing a ketogenic diet to help with their endurance and with gut issues during long races, which I suffered from. So it was kind of twofold, the gut health issues, but then I was also really curious to experiment with utilizing a low carb strategy for my running, which was really interesting
Hmm.
and very, very helpful for the gut issues. Although that's been a long journey and involved a lot more than just diet, but yeah, the gut health was definitely what first got me into learning about keto.
Amazing. Yeah, we always try and find the thing that is going to give us the answers that we need. And it's wonderful when we find something that actually works, because there are so many supplements and protocols out there that are promising quick fixes, but we are not addressing the root cause, right? So this brings me to my next question. Like, do you think that, our food supply in general is, corrupted in some way? Because the majority, everybody knows how to eat healthy, right? Everybody knows that they should eat their greens, they should eat their fruits and vegetables, they should, eat like a high protein diet. But when people eat those things, they tend to still have issues. There must be something like going on. And especially when you go in a supermarket, you notice that the majority of the foods, like 90% or 95%, is like ultra processed foods, right? And there's only like a really small amount of real food. So how much do you think that has a big contribution to today's society, with gut issues like obesity and all these modern day diseases that we are facing?
I think that's one of the main issues because people will say, older people will say, "Oh, well, I used to eat everything and I've been totally fine." And that's true in some cases. Some people, well, are you really fine? But maybe we look at our grandparents, our great grandparents, and they did eat wheat and they ate carbs and they ate meats, and yes, there were illnesses, but in general, I think people fared much better than people are now. And I think that is the ultra processed foods that has come into our lives. I think that it's all of the pesticides and the chemicals that are used. I think that glyphosate is a huge problem for people and their gut health. I definitely did not have as much of a problem with gluten as I developed as an adult. Now I absolutely cannot eat gluten. I don't know that I'm celiac. We actually can't test me because I'm so sensitive, and you have to have been eating gluten for a period of 6 to 8 weeks every single day for the test to be accurate. This is actually
Oh,
something that
wow.
my kid's pediatrician told me after I had
Mhm.
a
Mhm.
hospitalization after gluten exposure.
Yeah.
But I do think that how the food is being hybridized and modified and spray, all of the things that they do to it, it's changing it to the point where I don't even consider most of these things actual food. I call them frankenfood. And so
Yeah.
when I go to the grocery store, it's actually pretty easy for me because I'm skipping the majority of those middle aisles with all of the franken processed foods.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I think
Go ahead.
it's massively contributing. And you can see it pretty easily when you work with people who remove just the processed foods. When you just remove the processed foods, you start to see huge differences in people's health. So
Yeah, exactly. It's like one of the pillars of health, but it's not the only, which I'm sure we will discuss later on in this episode about all the other important like pillars of health that are, bringing our whole health together, from a holistic approach. Yeah, and so all the things that you just touched upon there are so important, and they're all impacting our immune system, right, in some way or another. And it's all about like how much are you intoxicating versus how much are you detoxifying your body, right? So now with our modern day like food supply, we imagine like we have to be cautious with what we are actually putting in our mouths, never mind all the things that we are spraying on our body, the shampoos that we are using, fragrances like microplastics, heavy metals, the skies being sprayed, and all this kind of stuff, which is impacting our immune system on a huge level. And we want to think of our immune system like a bucket, right? And if that bucket overflows, then that's when the problems start to occur, because it doesn't necessarily, let's say, it's not only down to the immune system, but it starts to affect the mitochondria as well. So when you said about the carnivore diet, and like the one beautiful thing is that what I noticed when I was doing the carnivore diet is that I was thinking when I go in the supermarket, I can just skip even all the vegetables and all the fruits, because we have to even worry about those, right? Like we can't just like grab them and eat them even if they're out of season, for example. And we have to like be concerned if they are sprayed with stuff also.
yes, and actually, funny you bring that up. I don't know if you've been seeing a lot of the videos about the watermelons that people have been buying, and they just look almost rubbery. They've looked really strange, and then
I
I did
haven't
end up
seen
seeing.
those. No.
Oh, it's very bizarre. Watermelon, it's supposed to be light but crisp, and we know what watermelon is
Juicy.
supposed to
Yeah.
look like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And these just, they look dried up and, like I said, rubbery, plasticky. I don't know where these people are getting the water, these watermelons from. But then I did end up seeing something about some of the imported watermelons being injected with things and gassed with chemicals. And so yeah, it's one thing to eat a fruit out of season grown someplace other than where you live, but then we're also bringing in these fruits and we have no idea how they're being grown, what they're being treated with, what's being put into them. So yes, eating carnivore can make it a lot more simple.
Exactly. And this is why, like, I'm a very big advocate for carnivore diet as well, because I just feel that you can eliminate a lot of the unnecessary struggle, and, all of this, you know, you have to be so cautious, like when you go even in the supermarket, even when you are grabbing like some fruits and vegetables, for example, even let's say they are local, they may be like super sprayed with pesticides, and that's going on your skin, then you're touching your face, it's going on like in your, because your skin is one of your largest organs of your body as well, so that's absorbing everything. You can even smell it, like it has this kind of petroleum type of smell, like when you smell your hands afterwards, you just know that you have touched something with pesticides. So like what I always recommend for people, if they are going to get something with pesticides, if it's local, that always make sure that you wash it like in baking soda or vinegar, at least to minimize your exposure. Because I'm not saying don't eat fruits and vegetables. I'm just saying I'm not pro like chemicals, and pro pesticides, or pro like anything toxic that didn't exist more than 100 years ago. And so all of these substances are not natural in our environment.
Exactly. I totally agree. It's very important. And I really encourage people, and this is what I do myself, is to shop at farmers markets if you have them available to you, because then
Yeah.
you can actually talk to the farmers and My farmer's market has stands that are not certified organic, but I've talked to the farmers, they don't use pesticides. They're not spraying, they're not using chemicals. They just haven't gone through the certification process. So I
Yes.
think, along with the seasonality of locally grown fruits and vegetables, there's also
Yeah.
the fact that you get to know the people who are growing the food. And I think that's really important.
Exactly. So let's get into the seasonality aspect and let's talk about why is it actually important to eat seasonally, like not only from like a physical standpoint, but also a spiritual standpoint. I'm just interested in your answer.
Well, it's funny because I used to think of eating locally as just purely being about protecting the environment and supporting local farmers and restaurants and things like that. And now I've learned so much more about it. Those things are important to me, but when I am buying things that are grown local, I know that they're being grown under the same sun and in the same environment that I currently live in. Even if I was going to go on vacation, I live in the mountains of California. If I were to take a vacation and go to Hawaii, as long as I am out seeing my sunrise and getting my UVA and UVB light and acclimating myself to that environment, then I can actually eat the produce and my body will understand how to process it. I can eat the produce in that place in Hawaii. Whereas if I were to eat a mango from Hawaii in the mountains of California, my body won't necessarily know what to do with it. It's a mismatch. It's giving my body confusing signals.
Right.
And so I want to give my body the most clear signals that I possibly can so that it can live
Mhm.
in harmony with my environment, because I think that's so important to overall optimal health.
Exactly. And we know that when we create a circadian mismatch or a locality mismatch or even seasonality mismatch through the eating the wrong foods at the wrong time of the year, not in the right environment and right context, we basically create cellular chaos. And that is the actual reason why we don't want to be consuming those things out of season, because it creates inflammation. And so
Mm-hmm.
the thing is that carbohydrates create ROS, reactive oxygen species, and that is actually what allows us to produce more melanin when we are out in the sun. And when in the winter time, we don't need so much ROS because there is way less sunlight. So this is why we do like things like cold exposure. We get our ROS through that, for example, or we do like fasting or we do exercise, and that is also able to stimulate the reactive oxygen species, but it's not stimulating it in the same way that like the seasonal fruits and vegetables are doing it. So you touched a little bit about the circadian rhythms in there. How important are circadian rhythms for health?
I would argue that it is one of the most, if not the most important aspect to optimal health, because it truly is the foundation of our health. We receive signals through our eyes and our skin from the light that we are exposed to, and that basically tells our brain, which tells our body what to do at every moment, every second of the day. And so if we are receiving incorrect signaling or, kind of mismatched signaling by being under artificial lights, like I am right now,
No, those lights are good.
it, we live in the modern world, so we do the best that we can. I will definitely be going outside after this recording to get all of my natural sunlight.
Amazing.
But when those signals are confused, then our body becomes confused and it doesn't know exactly what it's supposed to be doing in that exact moment. And so no matter what kind of diet you eat or what kind of supplement you take or protocol you do or challenge you partake in, if you aren't giving your body those basic signals so it knows exactly what to do. I look at the whole body as like an orchestra, and then this little part in our brain is the conductor, and the conductor is waiting for the signal, and if the conductor's getting the wrong signal, then the whole orchestra is off. So yeah, I think circadian rhythms is definitely very important, and then everything else that we do on top of that just works so much better But I think
Yeah.
it's almost like a dog chasing its tail. You know, if we're just chasing diet, if we're just chasing all of these other protocols without
Mhm.
addressing our foundation, then, you know, we're just sort of running in circles. And I think a lot of people, they may find that they have improvements in their health, but I don't know that they ever get to that place of optimal health that they're really searching for.
Yes, yes. So it's like a missing piece that, even if you're exercising right, eating right, or you think you are sleeping enough hours, if you're not doing it, if you're not living in alignment, with nature's clock, then your body is disrupted, right?
Exactly. And so I have a great example of that. My gut issues that I've had forever. I was trying all the supplements. I was going to all these different practitioners. I tried things that were helpful, but they never got me to a place where I felt that I was truly healing. I mean, things like IV ozone therapy, which was fantastic, but it wasn't getting me the results that I was looking for. And one of the things that I was also doing during all of this searching and all of this experimentation with food and supplements and protocols was I was a self-proclaimed night owl. I would stay up usually past midnight. I have 2 kids, and so I said, well, this is my quiet time. This is when no one's bothering me, and I felt energized. I felt energized at 11 p.m. And so I thought, well, this is just my time to relax or my time to be creative. I can watch movies, I can look on my phone, whatever it was. I didn't realize that by exposing myself to all of that artificial light and staying up so late was actually interfering with the repair processes that should have been taking place during my sleep. So even though I would sleep 8 hours, I mean, if I could, sometimes not because my kids were getting up for school. But even if I was getting 7 to 8 hours, I still wasn't repairing in the way that I needed to be repairing because
Mm.
at light. It was sending my body a signal that was not correct for that time of day when I should have been in total darkness.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think it's important for people to really understand like what actually goes wrong when you don't obey with the rules of nature, right? Or the laws, the night and dark cycle. And so you just touched on what maybe one aspect about like the repair aspect, but what else can people expect, or what are the things that can go right when you have healthy circadian rhythms? Like what can people expect to feel different?
I think when people are living a lifestyle that is very circadian friendly, most people will immediately notice an improvement in their mood. Their energy improves. I've heard from many people, and I experienced this myself. The afternoon crashes, the energy crashes that many people will feel between maybe 2 o'clock in the afternoon and 4 p.m. that goes away. Digestion improves, glucose metabolism improves. There's so many things. People start to be able to lose weight a little bit easier. They don't get sick as often. There's almost endless benefits to living a circadian friendly lifestyle. Your hormones become more balanced. I mean, there's just so much. But the very first thing that I notice with most people is that their sleep improves and their energy improves.
Mhm. Yeah, and those are two really, really big areas. And I'm really happy that you touched upon sleep, because many times when we talk about circadian rhythms, we tend to leave the sleep aspect out of it. But that is like literally tied to the circadian rhythm, right? It's basically like a fundamental part of it. Because so I guess people are now wondering, like, how does one go about in fixing their circadian rhythms? What would be like if you could give us only one thing that they could do? What could they do today to try and fix or to assist their circadian rhythms? Just one
Um,
thing.
just one thing. I would honestly, I think, start with mitigating the blue light exposure at night. So that would be turning artificial lights off if possible. If not totally possible, then changing light bulbs to more circadian friendly bulbs, which could be, for California, it's very difficult for us to get incandescent. That would be my top choice, a low watt, maybe amber tinted incandescent bulb.
Yeah.
My second choice would be finding an LED bulb that is flicker free and blue and green light free. So those are usually called sleep bulbs, or
Hmm.
maybe 16 to 1800 K
Hmm.
in terms of equivalent wattage. But yeah, there's so many things, and I really wanted the first thing to be get up and see sunrise, because
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
so important. But I think that we are all just exposed to so much toxic artificial light. It's kind of like junk food. We have all this junk light. And so just like I would advise a client who's coming maybe from a standard awful diet, American diet, a sad diet, the first thing I would have them do is start to eliminate the processed junk food. So I think that I would recommend starting to mitigate the processed junk light as a first step.
That's amazing. I would do the exact same, and that was a perfect answer because I would answer it the exact same. So we are totally on the same path. Yeah. So basically, yeah, when you are exposed to blue light at night, like why is it actually bad? Like, can you explain to us, like, why do we actually want to eliminate the blue light? And when you mean at night, like what time exactly at night, for example?
Sure. So first, I just want to say that blue light isn't bad. I don't see light as being bad, but it's the type of light and the intensity of the light at the specific times of day that matters. So
Yeah.
blue light is what actually tells our brain what time it is. And this is good. This is what we want when we are receiving that from natural sunlight. When we start introducing the artificial blue light, it's usually at a very, very high intensity, and it doesn't change throughout the day. So if we're sitting inside under bright white LED lights, that is essentially telling our brain that it is the middle of the day in the middle of the summer. So it's intense, it's very, very bright, and our body thinks, okay, it's the middle of the day, it's time to pump out cortisol, and we need to be productive, and we need energy to get through our day. So if we are exposed to that same light after sunset, then our body is thinking that it's the middle of the day when it's actually time to be winding down. And this is not what we want. So um, that feeling of energy that I would have at 11 p.m., that was because I was sitting under artificial blue light. My brain's thinking, oh, it's noon. It's time to work. It's time to be productive and creative. And it wasn't. So it was an artificial signal that was confusing my body. And yeah, so we want to start we want to start reducing that light, eliminating it if possible after the sun has set, because we have no more natural blue light in our environment. So
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. And so it makes total sense that with the light that we want to use, right, would be something more like amber slash orangey, something that would be devoid of the blue aspect of the color spectrum, because that's the last light that our eye is meant to see. And even one could argue that even red light is even detrimental after sunset, because the most ideal situation would be complete darkness. But we all acknowledge that obviously, like, we live in a modern world, we have responsibilities. We don't all go to bed exactly. We don't live in line with waking up and going to bed. We can wake up with the sunrise. That we can all do for sure. But the
Mhm.
hardest part, I would say, is going to bed with the sunset, following the circadian law in that manner. And this is exactly why we need to do everything possible, since we are breaking those rules and staying awake, is to, make sure that we are living in alignment with what the sun would be telling us in the last moments, which is actually protecting our melatonin release, which is responsible for our
Yes.
regeneration, our repair, our healing, our detox. So all of that doesn't take place if we do not release melatonin. So even if we sleep, let's say sleep, we're not actually regenerating or healing our body if we are not releasing that melatonin in our system. The melatonin release could be delayed, and that could make us feel groggy in the morning, because actually one of the roles of melatonin is to knock you out. It's like a
Right.
tranquilizer. So basically, like, if it's still floating in your bloodstream and it hasn't like gone out of your system, and if you haven't raised cortisol enough at the right time of the day, you're not going to be able to shut down melatonin production and feel energized in the morning. So you're going to feel more tired and groggy and not feel like energized. So this is why me and Maili, we share this aspect of, blocking the blue light at night and waking up with the sunrise. Because as soon as we start doing that, we're starting to feel like we're gaining our life force back, right? We have more energy now to be more productive, to have more energy throughout the day, to create, to just be better human beings overall, and for our hormones, most importantly, to function well. Because all of this with the circadian rhythms really is a dance between the light and the hormones, and those hormones are signaling messengers that listen to the type of light or absence of light in our environment. And this is how we can have healthy hormone levels and release them at the correct times of the day, and to be able to make fat loss more efficient, to be able to build muscle, to be able to like feel, confident and have a good self-esteem in our body, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And I think
Awesome.
something that, I'm finding that not everybody even knows what a circadian rhythm is, but those who
Yeah,
do, they really associate it more with the light and don't know the importance of darkness, that absence of light.
exactly. Yeah.
So that's something that I also try to teach my clients when they're learning about circadian rhythm. Yes, the sun is so important for so many reasons, but being in darkness is also equally important.
Yes. Yeah. This is something that I also tell my clients as well, is that like the day and night cycle is like a yin and yang. And
Hmm.
the yang is the daytime, which is the masculine force, and the darkness at night with the moon is the yin, which is the feminine and the healing force. And so the one is degrading, daytime is degrading the system, it's almost catabolizing the system, and the nighttime is anabolic. So anabolic, we're rebuilding in the night, so we are breaking down in the day and we are healing in the night. But if we have more breaking down than healing, you can see where this quickly escalates to, right? We are digging ourselves a hole that we cannot get out of. And then the amount of repair that we need to do afterwards is increasing exponentially. So now the energy that is normally required or given to us to feel good and to have energy to think well for our digestion, our cardiovascular system, every system in the body is now going towards healing the body, trying to heal it even in the daytime when it shouldn't be doing those jobs. So now, like, our body is always like in a deficit of energy, right? So it's really nice the way that you said it. And I would like to, go into all the areas of that. What, where can we harvest energy, right? Because we think that food is like the only place where we get energy, but where are the other sources of energy that we can harvest from, where it can stock up our cellular battery?
So it was interesting when I learned that we are only supposed to get 1/3 of our energy from food. My mind was kind of blown because I had no idea. I thought that was our main source of fuel and energy. And then I learned that no, actually we are also supposed to be getting energy from sunlight and from grounding, from putting our bare skin to the earth's surface. So yeah, that I definitely did not know that before, and I think that many people don't understand that. Even though I actually did feel it when I was trail running all of the time. I was outside, and even though my bare skin wasn't necessarily touching the ground, I was in running shoes that were not conductive. But I would stop, sit on rocks, touch trees, plants, things like that, and I'm in the sun. And I would actually come home, even if I felt a little bit physically tired, I felt energized and like I could just still keep going on with my day. And I always thought it was the endorphins, and now I understand no, it was actually more than that.
Yeah, on a deeper level. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, it's just so interesting how when we realize the importance of, sunlight and grounding in addition to our nutrition, because think about the modern man or woman who lives a lifestyle under artificial blue light. They eat a junk food diet, which gives them, even like, they don't even get the energy that they need, right? The electrons that they need from that food, and they are
Right.
not, they are avoiding the sun at all costs, wearing sunscreens, glasses, hats when they do go in the sun. And then they are spending their whole time under artificial lighting and close to non-native electromagnetic fields, which is Wi-Fi, cell phones, anything electronic pretty much. And they're also not getting their bare feet ever on the ground because they're wearing rubber soled shoes, or they are never going to the beach because they fear the sun. So, like, what would you say to somebody like that? How could they, what would be something that they could do to be able to, start changing their habits and behaviors around this topic?
So I would just advise somebody to start taking light breaks. Just, it's hard for us to avoid being indoors. It's hard for us to avoid being inside of a car. Many of us are waking up, we're getting our kids ready, taking them to school, taking ourselves to work, sitting in an office, sitting in a school building, whatever it is, or sitting inside working at home. That is not necessary. That's not something that can be avoided for all people. So I would just recommend you start small, taking light breaks. If you can wake up in the morning and see sunrise without any sunglasses, no contact lenses, no glasses on, even if it's just for a minute. And I think everyone can carve out a minute to go outside, reset your circadian rhythm, and then you go on with your morning. Then
Hmm.
maybe when you are driving to work or driving your kids to school, you just crack the window a little bit, roll down the window, the light will come in. That's another way to take a light break. When you're at work, you're going to take a lunch, you're going to have a 10-minute break. Go outside if you can, maybe eat your food outside. You can even put your hands on concrete, as long as it's not sealed concrete. You can put your hands on concrete. So people working in the city, and I mean, that's questionable because you're surrounded by EMFs, but that's another topic.
Yeah.
But
Yes. Yes. Of
you can
course.
put your hands on the ground, you can touch a tree, you can touch a leaf on a plant as you're taking a walk. So there's
Yeah.
a lot of ways that you can start to kind of harness these things that don't need to be spending 8 hours, hiking on a trail or laying on a beach or swimming in the ocean, which are all ideal and wonderful. But
Yeah.
in our modern lives, I feel that we can still embrace nature, even if you're living in a big city.
Mhm. So what I understood from all of those great tips that you just offered is the key here is consistency. So that means that, like, how frequently or how often can you do something positive or helpful for yourself throughout the day? That also helps to keep you, like, mentally aware about your life, about how do you behave, like what are your habits and behaviors. Are you using that your break at work to scroll your phone and while you're eating your stuffing your lunch and being unaware of your digestion and not being present with your food? Or are you taking that time to eat it outside with your feet on the grass if you can, and get some light, and at the same time, like, recharge your batteries as in all the ways possible, right? So again, like, I think that just those were really great tips that what you offered, and I think that the key is to go with the lowest hanging fruit, right? For every single individual, it's always different. It's always context dependent, depending on the situation. Some people have it more difficult than others, but the key is to try and find everybody. I'm sure has some little patch of grass around there, like outside their concrete building, whether it's only just for the tree. I'm sure you can just put your hand on a tree and get the electrons through your hands. And one argument I would like to make against everyone who says about grounding in the city is this: it's all context dependent. If you are an individual who is extremely well charged, and when I say charged, meaning you are living a circadian aligned lifestyle, you eat well, you are exposed to the sunlight, you ground on a daily basis, you do everything right, right? From every single aspect of your life. So this is what I would call a well-charged individual, because their batteries are literally well charged. Electrons flow from high potential to low potential. And what does this mean? It means that where there is a lot of electrons, they always want to go to the point of lowest electron concentration. If an individual is depleted in those electrons that they actually need to produce ATP, which is, our cellular currency that the mitochondria make. This is why we talk about electrons, right? That person will actually get more benefit from grounding in a city compared to an individual who is already well charged, which will actually lose electrons by going to ground in a city. And of course, yes, one could say that we become an antenna for electromagnetic fields when we ground ourselves, because we are conductive and we act almost like a wire or an antenna which is rooted in the ground, bringing the electromagnetic fields through us into the ground. But at the same time, nature is so intelligent that even if we deplete our system, we are able to recharge at the same time. So whether it's going out of our system, it's coming back in. It's not like just because it's going out doesn't mean that we have to wait for it. It's not like a process that occurs in separate parts.
Right. Right.
Awesome. So I would like to move on to like the like a health pyramid, and I would want to ask you, where do you think, for example, if we were to put circadian rhythms on a health pyramid, and we have 4 to 5 different sections, and the bottom of the pyramid is the foundation, so like the biggest part, where would you put circadian rhythms and sleep on that? I think you already answered the question, but where would you put it?
Yeah, the base would be circadian rhythms and sleep. I think that everything is built from there. Yeah, so that would be the base of my pyramid, my health pyramid.
Nice, I agree. And what about the second piece above that?
I would probably put nutrition into that second piece. I mean, I always think of what are the things that we absolutely have to do? Well,
Yeah.
we have to function and we require light and dark in order to function. We need to sleep in order to function. And then we do need to take in fuel in order to function, fuel and water. So I would put nutrition and the absolute best quality water that somebody can find, can source or create, because not all of us have the best water coming straight to us, but there's things that we can do to help improve the quality of our water. So yeah, the next level would definitely be the highest quality food that a person can source and the highest quality water that a person can source.
Amazing. Let's come back to that in a second. So what would be like the third part? So let's imagine that the pyramid has 5 sections. We've now covered 2 sections, so 3 more to go. What would be the next piece?
3 more to go. Okay, so food on top of that, I would say movement. I think that movement is so important. And that I don't even necessarily think that means hardcore exercise, going in and doing some, big workout routine, but just moving the body, walking, yeah. Even if that's walking in place. If somebody works all day, you just stand and walk in place, do some squats, but just moving your body. Obviously, all about movement. But I think that is very, very important. So I would put that at number 3.
Right. And now you have 2 more sections left. What would you put next?
2 more sections. I think the next one would be kind of actually in opposition of movement, but sitting still, because I don't think that very many people practice just being, whether that's a meditation practice, prayer, even just sitting and reading a book for pleasure. I see that there's this big emphasis on how busy we are, that this is, something that we look so highly upon. Being busy, how busy are you? We're constantly moving and keeping busy. And that is good to a certain degree, but I also think it's really important to just be still and reflect. So something that I actually have my clients do, I just call it the head to toe. So a head to toe check-in as we are changing things in their diet, as we're working on circadian rhythm. I will ask them just to do a very quick head to toe where they start at the very top of their head and just really tune in and think about how they're feeling. And they start to notice either the presence of symptoms or the absence of symptoms. And then, if they're willing, I have them jot those things down. So then we can just see the progression. It's a nice way for them to see progression as they're making all of these changes in their life. So yeah, I think number 4 for me would be just stillness, quiet, however somebody does that, but just a way where you are just with yourself.
I love that. Yeah, that was not part of my health pyramid, so I thank you for contributing to that. Like, and what is the top? What would be the last little tip of the iceberg?
The last tip I would say would be human connection, touch, interaction, being social, laughing, having fun, but just being with other people, other animals, any way that you have physical touch and social connection. And then I guess I would also, because there's a spiritual part in there that I guess is I missed, but that is very, very, very important too. So I would bring a spiritual aspect into one of those one of those blocks of the pyramid.
Yeah, and you kind of touched a little bit upon it on the rest as well, didn't you? Like when you mentioned about checking in with yourself. I guess that's like part of the process of, connecting and feeling how am I doing today, and realizing that this physical body is so much more expansive than what we actually think. We tend to believe that this is all that we are, but we forget that when we go into this meditation or this mindfulness space, we find ourselves in this vastness of nothingness, right? And like everything can exist and nothing can exist all at the same time, all in our head, and we can change literally physiologically how we feel, and psychologically as well, based on that. How we bring ourselves, how do we visualize ourselves to be. So thank you so much for sharing those that health pyramid. That was really good. The only thing that if I was to build a health pyramid, how I would write it differently is actually I like yours way more, because you brought in the rest aspect and also the human connection aspect, which I didn't consider as important. But now that I think about it, I think it's actually even more important probably than the things that I would put there. So for example, on number 3, instead of movement, I would put like detox, like removing all the things which are intoxicating us on a daily basis, because health is not only about what can I take in, but rather what can I remove from my life. So toxic relationships, toxic, like anything that we use in the homes, anything that we are exposed to that is toxic for us, that is causing us basically physical damage and draining our cellular batteries, really. And for sure relationships go into that category. And then the next one, which I would have put, would be the movement and exercise on number 4. I mean, movement and breathing, sorry. And then number 5 would be hard exercise. So, this is like, a lot of people, they focus on training hard and, doing everything hard. And in reality, no, you need to like build a good foundation for yourself. And exactly as you and me say, is like start off with your circadian rhythms, like, focus on your nutrition. I would put like even relationships down there, like above the, after the nutrition. I think is super important for your digestion, your mental
Yes.
health, your physical health. Then, of course, if we just add all our concepts together, I think that it makes a very complete it gives all the pillars of health in a way to build, a good and healthy, robust system.
Yes. Yeah. And I didn't even think about the detox, the detoxing of all these things, because you're right. And especially the toxic relationships. I think most of us think of detoxing things like heavy metals and chemicals, and all of these things are being added to our products and our foods. But the relationships, that's huge, really, really impacts things like digestive health, mental health.
Yeah, it impacts us on a very physical, like physiological level. It has like physiological effects. Our body is under threat, it's under stress. Every time when our body is under stress, it cannot tell the difference between physiological and psychological stress or emotional. Anything that we create in our head is real to our body, right? So, and it encounters that. This is what we call trauma. Like when you encounter something in your life that you store, and then something reminds you of that thing, you can re-experience the trauma, relive the trauma, and experience the very physical symptoms that you felt during that time when you had that traumatic event. So tell us a little bit about what can someone, how can they identify if they are like in a toxic relationship from a physiological perspective? Like, what would be some symptoms that they could? Okay, we're not giving like people advice here, but what we are trying to say is that we can all agree that when we are in the presence of someone who doesn't have our best interest or who drains us, like what would be something physiologically that we would manifest in our body?
Well, I'll use myself as an example since we are definitely not giving anyone any advice. But for me, when I have been in toxic relationships or around people who were toxic for me, I'm not going to say that they are toxic, but they were toxic for me. I would immediately have gut symptoms. I would have pain in my gut. I would feel nervous. Just digestive issues. So that was that's always been my main physical symptom. But I will also just feel general anxiety when I'm in these situations around these or around these types of people, where my heart starts racing a little bit more. I might sweat more. I can't sleep as well at night. And even things like headaches will come on, or feeling more sleepy in the day, or even not being able to lose weight. So there's a lot of physical things that can start to come out. I've actually heard of other people having skin issues when they are in toxic environments with toxic for them people.
Yeah.
I think our body has a way of bringing it to our or tries to bring it to our attention. And if it can't do that on a mental or emotional level, it's going to start presenting in a physical way to say, hey, it's time to pay attention because something isn't right here.
Mm.
And yes, it could be from your food, it could be from your light environment, but it really also could be from the relationships that you're in or around even.
Mm. Yeah, that's absolutely huge. Like one could argue that you could eat the crappiest food in the world, and as long as you are happy and you eat it outside, then you're like, in robust health. You could actually deal with that food pretty well with your gut and your digestion. But if you are eating that type of food in the presence of fear, or like that you're doing something wrong or you are afraid, then you can for sure manifest like some very physical symptoms like leaky gut even, or gastrointestinal distress, cramping, and all of
Yeah.
these kind of issues. And that's just not only from the like digestive aspect, but how our whole musculoskeletal system works as well. It can tighten up, and it can take quite a while for our body to release in a way or relax, if we haven't like dealt with these things. And so we can only deal with these things if we eliminate those exposures, right, from our life. And this is why me and Miley talk about trying to distance ourselves from individuals who are not the best for us, because this allows us to go into a space of healing, and healing is absolutely not easy, and it takes time and it takes energy, and you need to be able to have the space to recharge your battery, to do everything right, especially if you have been in relationships which are stealing a lot of your energy. And something that I have experienced as well is that I always feel like my limbs feel really heavy, like I'm feeling just physically very, very heavy after I've been in the presence of somebody who, like, I feel like has stolen my energy. Even individuals who are like really nice people, like sometimes you just somehow get that feeling like that, your body is like feeling really heavy. But that's probably because you like me and you, we are quite introverts, right? And basically, or I'm assuming that you are.
Yes.
I don't want to talk for you, but basically, when I give a lot of myself, I find that I'm like totally knackered afterwards.
Yes, I am the same. And my kids are very similar as well. And I think when you are a very empathetic person, it's also a lot harder. When you tend to feel the feelings of other people, it becomes very, very draining. And something that I've told my kids since they were really little. I said, it's really important to learn to be a filter and not a sponge. When you're around people, you can either be in a situation where you're a sponge and you are just kind of, you're taking all of their energy in and whatever's going on with them. Maybe they're complaining to you, maybe they're just talking about things that are going on in their life, and then you sort of just absorb it and you're taking it on, and you almost feel what they're feeling. And that is so incredibly draining on so many different levels. And so I've just taught them, and I try to remind myself to practice being a filter rather than that sponge, where you can still be there for somebody and you take in what they're giving, but then you let go of all the things that you don't need to hold on to. And it's hard. It takes a lot of practice, but it's so much healthier. And I feel that I can come away, because some of these people who I consider maybe a little bit toxic for me, it's not that I don't care about them. Some of these are people who I really, really love. But I really, really have to practice being a filter when I'm around these people, because it's not like I'm just going to shut them out and I don't love you anymore. No,
I know.
It's not really even about them. It's about me and how I'm holding or releasing their energy.
So that's perfect, because that takes us like with a perfect transition into the one of maybe the last questions which I wanted to ask you, which is, how important is it to take ownership and responsibility of one's health, but not only from like a physical perspective, but also from a psychological perspective? Like, how important do you think that is, and what kind of impact does that have on a societal level?
I actually think it is one of the most important things that we can do. And I sadly see that most people don't take responsibility for themselves and their own choices when it comes to their health. We've become so dependent on the experts. We trust the experts to tell us what to eat and how to move, and how many calories to take in, and all of these things, or what medication to take, or to diagnose us with this or that illness or disease, so that then we can, go to them to find out what we're supposed to do about XYZ disease or illness. And not that these experts aren't valuable. I am not discrediting any kind of, health practice in any way, because I think everything has its place. But no matter what it is, I feel that we have responsibility as an individual to educate ourselves, to know ourselves, and to trust ourselves, and then to ask questions, and maybe even challenge some of the people that we're going to, even if we have trust in them, but challenge them to think, ask them questions that make them think about you and your situation, because for them too, they're busy. And I think many practitioners, they kind of get into their protocols and just, okay, you have this, or you're working on that. And so what we do, and it just becomes very rhythmic, rather than stopping and going, oh, okay, wait a second. No, let's look at you as a whole individual and see what might work best for you, because I know what works for me may not work for you. And that's just the way it is. I think we all want our health to fit into a box, because that would be so much easier. It's easier to pop a pill and, follow a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 protocol, but it just doesn't usually work that way. So we're always changing. Medicine is always changing. We're learning new things all the time, at least we should be. And so, I think it is absolutely the most important thing to take responsibility for our health, and then our actions with regard to our health.
And what kind of impact do you think that has, like on a global scale? Like, by you taking that ownership and responsibility, like, do you think it has like a positive or a negative impact? Are you selfish by doing that?
No, actually, I think that there are some people that may look at it as being very selfish, but I think it's the complete opposite. I think that when we take responsibility for ourselves, we are actually doing good for really the rest of the planet. No, we're all connected, no matter where we are. I mean, you and I, we are a world apart. you are on the other side of the world than me, but I know that the things that I'm doing for my health eventually affect you and your health, because it's a ripple effect. The things that I'm doing make me a happier person. And so, I think about this often when I go out and say I'm going to get a coffee from the coffee shop, and I've done all of the things that I need to do to make myself feel optimally healthy. So I am in a great mood. I'm happy. I walk in, and the person who is handing me my coffee, we have maybe a small conversation. Maybe I ask them how they're doing. We make eye contact. We smile at each other. And some people could say, well, this is just superficial, surface level conversation. But to me, it's actually really, really important, because that person has a moment of happiness with me. And maybe the next person who comes along, they will smile at each other and have some nice, lovely conversation. And it just keeps going and going and going. And even though you are in Cyprus and I am in California, eventually that ripple will reach you. And, I think it can be on small levels, like those interactions with people, but then also bigger when it comes to our health and our healthcare systems. The more that we rely on experts to tell us what we should be doing, and the more that we rely on these big governing bodies to decide what is best for us, the more we let go of our health sovereignty, I guess you could say. And I think that actually has a very, very negative impact. When we stop thinking for ourselves, we stop doing these really good things for ourselves, because let's face it, I don't really trust the advice that's coming from most of these bigger agencies. I personally believe that there are other motives behind a lot of the recommendations. I think that when you start diving down rabbit holes, we see that money is behind a lot of things that are supposed to be healthy and good for us, and it hasn't been for most people. So yeah, I think that if we can kind of pull away from that, ask questions, and make decisions for ourselves that make us feel good and make us feel healthy, even if that goes maybe against the common medical or health narrative, I think that has a bigger impact for the world as a whole.
That was that was perfectly said. That was great. And so basically, yeah, I wanted to just add in there that these big governing bodies or the big agencies that are making these decisions for the public, they are basing a lot of their data and the decision making over from the average of the population. And
Yes.
you and me both know that the majority of the population is suboptimal. Unfortunately, it's quite sad to say, but this is the truth and the fact of the matter. And this is why myself and Maili, like why we are so important in this world right now, because you all need us, to be able to assist you to change, your lifestyle, your nutrition habits, your movement, your light and dark cycles, to take ownership of your health, to start thinking for yourself. Because if we just give our power away to other individuals, we are basically helpless and always relying on someone else, right? And we always waiting for a cue. We're always having to give away a shit ton of money that we actually don't need to be, and we can be saving so much and taking so much ownership for our health. Of course, a lot of these systems are designed like, for emergencies, acute situations. When I talk about like hospitals, for example, those are incredible for acute situations, right? If you're in an accident and you need like an immediate surgery, like they are doing an incredible job. But disease, like management or chronic disease, it's not like the perfect model, because as we can see, the chronic disease is constantly rising all the time, and there are many, many, many contributing factors to that, which we highlighted in this entire episode. So thank you so much, Maili, for your time. Like it was a really, really fun conversation. And is there anything else, like the last words of wisdom you would like to share with the audience?
Oh, I don't know if they're words of wisdom, but I would just encourage everyone to get outside as much as possible. No matter what anyone says, I believe that the sun is absolutely essential. It's like a nutrient. We all need it. Just be smart about it. And, the two of us can definitely help you learn how to safely get sunlight and turn those lights off at night, or get a pair of blue blockers. But I think just protecting your light environment and making it as healthy as possible is just something that I hope everyone will start to focus on.
Amazing. That's exactly what I would suggest as well. People to connect with nature as much as they can. To get outside, to go to the beach, get on a piece of grass and even play with your children and have fun. Most importantly, don't take life too seriously. Because many times when we think about health or movement, we try to put it like we try to do it so seriously as adults, but the reality is that we actually want to be moving our bodies frequently throughout the day, exercising sometimes per week, but movement is a biological necessity. And that's what I like practice and preach. And I tell people that, just go and have fun, go for a walk, play volleyball, play basketball, go and swim in the sea, do something that's more enjoyable for you, because that is going to be a way more consistent way for you to change your lifestyles and habits. So where can people find you, Maili? What's your website? Do you have a website or any social media accounts?
I do have a very simple website that just has some information on how I coach. That is healthcoachmaili.com. And then as far as social media, I am only on Instagram, and that is Health Coach Mize. Mize is a nickname, but Health Coach Mize on Instagram.
Awesome. So I will link to those in the show notes below for everybody to be able to find you. Thank you so much, Maili, and I hope to do it again.
Thank you so much. It was great to chat with you.